hello to everyone. We just wait a little. Our participants are joining us still, and we will start, okay? So I think we can start because all the participants will join us. And hello to everyone. I'm very nice to meet you today. And welcome everyone. My name is Natalia Kokorina, and I'm honored to be your host for today's roundtable event. This event has been organized by the charitable organization, Charitable Foundation IT Sprout, dedicated to fostering inclusive cultures and unity in diversity within the workplace. Today's event is focused on the critical topic, unity in diversity, HR's roles in inclusive cultures. We have invited esteemed HR influencers from top of the global list to share their valuable insights and best practices. Their expertise and experience will provide with a health knowledge and practical strategies to enhance inclusivity. We are also pleased to have the support of the State Employment Service of Ukraine. Today, we are joined by two representatives from this vital organization, Victoria Vassilieva and Maria Potapenko, and we are grateful for their participation and support. For our participants, please note that we will have a dedicated Q&A block at the end of the event, and you can put your question in the chat while the session. If time permits, our respected speaker will answer this question at the end. And let's begin our event. I'm pleased to introduce our first speaker from Greece. Evi Prokopi is a multicultural expert, having lived in 6 countries and worked with people from 58 countries. She has tremendous experience in recruiting, training, coaching, mentoring, leading and managing project management teams for Fortune 100 companies and startups. Evi, the founder and president of Cosmo Leadership, the Global Leadership Association, is the first and youngest Greek female to ever speak at the Global Project Management Institute Congress. And she is one of the world top 100 HR influencers in 2020. Moreover, she was recently given the 40 Under 40 Business Elite Award and the Best Leadership Award by the CEO Today magazine. As a certified work performance assessor, HRM lecturer, success coach, the managing director of Schema Projects and international best-selling author, she wants to empower people and help them achieve their professional and personal goals. Please, Evi, take your stage.
Hello, thank you very much for having me here today. It's an honor for me to be among all these very successful and influencing people. And we're going to discuss something very dear in my heart about diversity and inclusion.
That's perfect.
I would like to share my screen.
Yes, you have this opportunity, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, you have. Okay, that's good.
Uh, okay. So sometimes I've experienced that Zoom doesn't help a lot when I switch pages. I'm going to try and put it in full screen and see what happens. So thank you very much for the introduction, Natalia. You've said pretty much everything about me. Actually, nowadays, over the last years, I am based in Greece after several years abroad in Europe and North America. And my company, Schema Projects, is specialized in soft skills training and mental wellness programs. And we have been awarded the Best Soft Skills Training Company and Mental Wellness Program Provider award by the Corporate Vision magazine for the whole EMEA area. And apart from that, I am Evie, a previously project manager and currently trainer and managing director with attention deficit disorder. And despite facing challenges in concentration and time management, I have managed to use tools and techniques to stay organized. And with the support of a flexible work environment and understanding colleagues, I excelled in leading projects and bringing unique creative solutions and hopefully high energy to the teams. My story is a testament that the potential of every individual um, is there when they're given the right support and understanding, and embracing disabilities like attention deficit disorder in the workplace can truly unlock unique talents and perspectives that drive success. So I've just moved to the next slide. Can you please confirm that you see the next slide, recognizing disability? I'm not sure if you can see my, no, okay, no worries. I'm just going to go like that so that you can see my screen. Okay, hopefully you can see the letters. Thank you. So disability in the workplace is not just about medical conditions. It is about recognizing the full range of human experiences. And disabilities can create challenges, but they don't define a person's potential. In the United States, actually, we have speakers from the United States, so they could probably confirm what I'm about to say. The Americans with Disabilities Act sees disability as a significant limitation on major life activities. The United Nations, on the other hand, emphasizes the role of societal barriers. And in order to truly include disabled individuals at work, we need to embrace their diverse conditions and break down the barriers that hold them back. It is about creating an environment where everyone can thrive regardless of their abilities. Discussing about barriers, well, disabilities in the workforce come in many forms, from physical and sensory impairments to intellectual and mental health conditions. And this includes mobility challenges, vision or hearing loss, cognitive limitations, and mental health issues like depression and anxiety or attention deficit disorder. According to the World Health Organization, over 1 billion people, which is approximately 15% of the world's population, lives with some form of disability, with higher numbers in the low and middle income countries. And of course, many people in the globe are undiagnosed. In the United States, the unemployment rate for disabled individuals is about twice that of non-disabled individuals. And research by the Job Accommodation Network shows that 59% of accommodations cost zero, nothing, while the rest typically cost only about $500. Despite the low costs, many disabled individuals still face barriers in their career progression, with only 35% of them, of these working age disabled individuals, employed, compared to 76% of non-disabled individuals. I'm just giving some hard facts here, some statistics to highlight the issue. And despite progress in legal protections, disabled individuals still struggle to access job opportunities, accommodations, and even career growth. And they often face stigma, discrimination, and systemic barriers that hinder their success. It is time to change that and create a truly inclusive workforce where everyone has a chance to succeed, has an equal chance to succeed. And laws and policies are vital in protecting the rights of disabled individuals and ensuring their inclusion in the workforce. The Americans with Disabilities Act in the US, the United Kingdom's Equality Act 2010, and the European Union's Employment Equality Directives prohibit disability discrimination and mandate reasonable adjustments. Upholding these laws and embracing inclusive policies are key steps, are essential steps toward creating fair and accessible workplaces for everyone so that everyone has the chance to achieve their own potential. Regarding the impact of disability on organizational dynamics, this is significant and it shapes how companies recruit and retain talents. And people with disabilities often face discrimination, inaccessible application processes, and lack of accommodations during hiring. This means that organizations miss out on diverse talents and perspectives. Even after hiring, retention becomes a challenge if the workplace doesn't meet their needs or provide necessary support. Without proactive steps to remove these obstacles, organizations risk losing valuable talent and perpetuating exclusion. A study by Accenture found that companies that actively seek to employ and support these disabled workers, they achieve on average 28% higher revenue, 30% greater profit margins, and twice the net income of their peers. And additionally, organizations with inclusive cultures are twice as likely to meet or exceed these financial targets, and even 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile. So there are huge benefits when we can actually hire and help these disabled people join our companies. Leadership viewpoints play a crucial role in integrating individuals with disabilities into the workforce. And effective leaders set the tone for how diversity and inclusion, including disability considerations, how these are perceived and acted upon within their organizations. However, leaders' attitudes and biases towards disability can vary, unfortunately. And this can influence their interactions with employees and shaping the overall organizational environment and culture. Misconceptions about capabilities or discomfort when it comes to discussing disability-related matters can lead to subtle discrimination, blocking inclusion, and limiting opportunities for disabled individuals to excel. However, there are 2 types of leadership, transformational and servant leadership, that can help a lot with that. Transformational leadership, which inspires and motivates employees, is particularly effective for promoting inclusion, inclusivity. And these leaders, the transformational leaders, encourage open communication, value individual differences, and are committed to personal and professional growth for all their team members. Moreover, servant leadership, which focuses on serving others and putting employees first, also fosters a supportive and inclusive environment. Both of these styles emphasize empathy, active listening, and creating a culture where all employees feel valued and empowered. And from all that I've discussed so far, it is imperative for leaders to take concrete actions to enhance the treatment of individuals with disabilities in the workplace. And this actually means implementing measures that foster inclusion and address the specific needs of disabled employees. And here we can find some actionable steps for inclusive leadership. And the first one is that leaders should prioritize disability awareness and training programs for all employees. And these programs should raise awareness about disability-related issues. They should challenge stereotypes and biases and provide practical guidance on creating inclusive work environments. By equipping employees with the knowledge and skills to interact respectfully and supportively with disabled individuals, organizations can foster a culture of inclusion and acceptance. As a matter of fact, Microsoft has been a pioneer on this, and they have this disability confidence training program that educates employees about disability inclusion, leading to increased awareness and improved workplace culture. And the outcomes of this program include higher employee satisfaction and enhanced team collaboration. The second step that we can take, that organizations should take, is establishing clear accessibility policies and practices to ensure that all aspects of the workplace, including facilities, technologies, and communication channels, they're all accessible to disabled individuals as well. And this may involve conducting accessibility audits, for example, or providing assistive technologies, and also offering training on accessible design principles for employees involved in facility planning and technology development. An example of a successful implementation of this step is by the BBC, which conducted an accessibility audit resulting in the implementation of ramps, assistive technologies, and accessible websites. And this audit led to a more inclusive environment for both employees and audiences, increasing engagement and satisfaction. So we see that these steps exist. They have been implemented by some major corporations with our great, amazing results. The third thing that we can do, support employee resource groups or else affinity groups, which can play a crucial role in promoting disability inclusion within organizations. And leaders should empower these groups by providing resources, support, and opportunities for collaboration. Employee resource groups can serve as valuable forums for disabled employees to share experiences, to advocate for their needs, and even drive initiatives to enhance inclusion and accessibility across the organization. Google's Disability Alliance ERG Employee Resource Group provides a platform for disabled employees to share experiences, advocate for needs, and drive inclusion initiatives. And these initiatives can include creating accessible product designs and influencing company-wide policies. And the last step, the last actionable step that we can follow, well, leadership is instrumental in shaping organizational culture and setting the tone for disability inclusion. Leaders should always lead by example. It's something that we've heard many times, and it's no different in this case. They should demonstrate inclusive behaviors and attitudes in their interactions with all employees, disabled employees included. And this means that they listen actively to the needs of disabled employees, they provide accommodations, they champion initiatives that promote diversity and inclusion. And by demonstrating a commitment to disability inclusion, leaders can inspire others to follow suit and create a more inclusive workplace culture. And a real-life example is by Apple. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, has created an inclusive culture by openly supporting diversity initiatives, providing necessary accommodations, and also ensuring all employees have equal opportunities. And some actions include the implementation of comprehensive accessibility features in Apple products and a diverse hiring strategy. So again, that all people are given equal opportunities. So effective leadership is key to addressing the challenges faced by disabled employees and fostering an inclusive workplace culture. And leaders who advocate for their needs, provide necessary accommodations, and provide awareness among staff, and this creates a supportive and empowering environment. And by prioritizing accessibility and inclusion in policies and practices, leaders ensure that all employees feel valued and empowered. And supporting these diversity initiatives and eliminating barriers to inclusion can enhance organizational performance, innovation, and reputation, also employer branding. Inclusive leadership leads to tangible benefits as well. Research by Deloitte shows that inclusive teams outperform their peers by 80% in team-based assessments. And on top of that, a study by the Harvard Business Review found that companies with higher levels of diversity and inclusion experienced 19% higher innovation revenues. And these benefits highlight the importance of fostering an inclusive culture, which not only enhances organizational performance, but also drives innovation and employee satisfaction. In conclusion, leaders play a pivotal role in fostering inclusivity for disabled individuals in the workplace. And by prioritizing disability awareness, by implementing accessibility policies, By empowering employee resource groups and leading by example, leaders can create environments where all employees feel respected and supported. And through these actions, organizations can truly promote equality, diversity, and a culture of acceptance, ultimately enabling disabled individuals to thrive and contribute their unique talents to the organization. So, as we going towards the end of this presentation, of this small discussion, we've explored the broad spectrum of disabilities and their profound impact on the workplace. We delved into the diverse forms of disabilities, supported by global statistics that highlight the significant presence of disabled individuals. We talked about the systemic barriers they face and the critical importance of legal frameworks. We discussed the substantial impact that inclusive practices have on organizational dynamics. We highlighted effective leadership styles, transformational and servant leadership, which are essential in fostering an inclusive culture. We outlined 4 actionable steps for inclusive leadership, providing detailed explanations and real-world examples of successful programs and initiatives. And of course, I talked about the tangible benefits of inclusive leadership. Just before you go, some more things as a takeaway, some do's and don'ts. Starting by some do's, please do promote awareness, educate employees about different disabilities and the importance of inclusivity. Do provide accommodations, ensure necessary accommodations are available for all employees. Do foster open communication, encourage open discussions about disabilities and inclusion. To empower employee resource groups, support these groups that advocate for disabled employees. And do lead by example and demonstrate inclusive behavior and attitudes in all your interactions. And some don'ts, don't assume limitations, don't make assumptions, avoid making assumptions about what individuals with disabilities can or cannot do. Don't ignore accessibility. Don't overlook the importance of making all aspects of the workplace accessible. Don't dismiss requests. Don't dismiss accommodation requests without proper consideration. Avoid stereotypes and treat every individual based on their unique capabilities and talents and needs. And finally, don't neglect ongoing training and education on disability awareness and inclusion, because creating an inclusive workplace requires a collective effort from leaders, employees, and policymakers. It is imperative that we all take responsibility in promoting and sustaining an environment where diversity is valued and inclusivity is a norm. By embracing diversity and inclusivity, we not only enhance our organizational performance, but we also contribute to a more equitable and just society. So let's work together to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to thrive and contribute their unique talents. Thank you very much for giving me your time, your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Your speech was really wonderful, and we have a few minutes left really for question before next speaker. So if colleagues maybe have, because you're great human, and I think so. Maybe we want to you want to ask somebody, each other, if you have some question, because a few minutes we have a few minutes to the next speaker. So I think so. Maybe some communication guide. It will be like near fireplace.
I actually had an inspiration, even that I think was really cool. You know, it kind of goes back into the unconscious bias, because my thought was being disabled doesn't mean you're unable in all areas. And so sometimes the brain, they focus just on the disability. And then the unconscious bias is, oh, they can't do anything else. Instead of seeing that people are very able, and just because they're disabled in one way doesn't discount their abilities, they're able in other areas. And so, and I really, really like your comment about the employee resource groups, because, you know, as we see companies as ecosystems and communities, we want it not to be top down, but throughout, you know, it's like everybody's involved in supporting the community of people. I really appreciate your stats also. The numbers matter. the fact that it actually is more beneficial financially to really embrace DEI. I think people are in denial about that. Like it does make you money to be this way. I really appreciate your stats on that as well. And I think in your work, have you met resistance when talking with leaders about that, because they think it's going to cost them?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for your comment. And as a matter of fact, they don't realize how easy it is to provide accommodations. And actually, many years ago, I heard a kind of funny one. There was someone who who was missing a limb, who was missing a hand. And someone told him, "Oh, you're a handicap." And he said, "Yeah, I'd like to think of myself as handicapable."
Yeah.
So that was amazing. I'm like, yes, the fact that he doesn't have a hand doesn't mean anything. And actually, I've seen people with disabilities actually trying even more, because they try to prove that, yes, I can do it. My disability does not define me. And they try even more, they work even harder. And yes, it's crazy that providing accommodations should be easy. It is cheap. It has major benefits on every side for the organization, for the teams. There's diversity, many different minds, many different perspectives. Yet people still, yes, as you said, they're in denial sometimes. Hopefully, things have started to change over the last years. Hopefully, fortunately.
Yeah, I would think that disability in unconscious bias training, specifically disability, like being disabled, is a component of that, besides just, the more traditional like race and ethnicity kind of thing. But that's a really important component of DEI and unconscious bias training.
Absolutely.
So, okay, let's go to our next speaker. It's Michael Moon. She's director of People Intelligence Viasat Inc., listed among the world top 100 HR influencers in 2021, People Analytics, HR Strategy, Employee Listening, and HR Tech. And also she's a psychologist and a lecturer at Columbia University. Please, I give you the word, Michael. Hello.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited to share with you a topic very near and dear to me. I'm going to share my slides and then I will do my proper intro here. So one moment. Are you seeing my title slide?
Yes, we see. Please look at everything.
Awesome. So today I'm going to talk, as all of us, we're going to talk about inclusion, but I'm going to take a slightly different personal detour and then come back to some of the work that I've been doing internally at my own organization, leading our employee resource group called the Ability Alliance. And then, so let me start first with a little bit about myself. Natalia did a great job introducing me, but there are a couple of things in there that I do want to point out. Mostly the fact that I am a late diagnosed autistic woman. I also suffer from ADHD, which was diagnosed late in life, but not quite as late as the autism. And I suffer from PTSD. On the next slide, I'm going to tell a personal story. And the reason I want to tell this story is because first, it's liberating for me, but also it's going to help drive home my final kind of messaging and points around inclusivity, not just being about disability or race or ethnicity, but really truly being about understanding and accepting and being curious about one another. But I do want to talk a little bit about my story. So I was born in Maryland. These are not very good pictures representing my family. My mom was really short. She had black short hair. My dad had red hair. I was taller than my sister. Anyway, this is the best I could do adultly. So born in Maryland, and for all intents and purposes, happy little child. But I was very I would often isolate myself. I did not feel like I fit in like I was everyone else. When I was 7 years old, I became the victim of childhood sexual trauma. I did not know how to process that. What I came to learn about later on in life was that my autism was actually a survival mechanism. But I didn't know that at the time, and I struggled, feeling like everybody would know what had happened to me and what was going on, because this went on for many, many years, starting at the age of 7. So what did I do? I did everything in my power to pretend like I was okay. I started playing the violin. I auditioned for musicals. I, as you can see here, started singing and dancing and acting. I went off to high school and I ran track and cross country, and I played softball, and I was top of my class, right? Of course everything's okay. I ended up getting 5 degrees, because you can never have enough degrees, right? But all the while, I was masking. So this should be a comedy and a tragedy mask, but I was masking what was really happening underneath of me. But it was almost like a double mask, one in which I was hiding the shame of what I had been through as a child, and then what I had to endure after that by simply living in the same house as this person. But also the masking that I was doing, because I knew I wasn't like everybody else. I created notebooks where I would go through the dictionary and I would take color pictures of every single flower in the dictionary. And when I was done with flowers, I went back and I did vegetables. When I was done with vegetables, I went back and I did fruits. Right? I was teaching myself 7 languages. Like all these things I thought were really super cool, but I knew I was not like other people. When I got my diagnosis in my early 40s, it was as if the skies opened up and everything started to make sense. I've been on this journey now for about 8 years to understand myself, to understand both what I call my superpowers, as well as my opportunities for growth and development. I have felt more comfortable sharing, and found that the more people that I share with, the more I understand myself, and the more others who might have similar stories are able to feel comfortable to share their stories and be comfortable with who they are. This is what led me to, when I joined the company that I currently work for, I wanted to do something meaningful. And so I became the global ERG lead for what we call the Ability Alliance at Viasat. So one of the things that, I think it was Joanne, you had mentioned, and Eva as well, around the idea of awareness, right? Awareness and education is so incredibly important. And so I'm going to talk about 2 different events that I did internally. I'm going to talk about the impact that this had to different individuals, but I'm also going to talk about how this impacted something pretty major for us, that is a requirement for some US companies to actually complete. So one of the first things that autism itself is considered an invisible disability. Many times when I tell people that I'm autistic, I get the response, well, you don't look autistic, you're so successful. And I said, well, what am I supposed to look like? So I decided that one of the ways that we could start to bring awareness was to actually do an entire series on invisible disabilities. As part of the Invisible Disabilities Awareness Month, which happens every year in October. And over about 4 weeks, we rolled out 3 different articles and resources. And they were posted internally to our communications platform, and that gave also people the opportunity to comment and like and share with one another. But the very first part of it was simply, let's define what an invisible disability is. So it was super important for people to understand what that was, but also to provide examples. And so when we talk about awareness and education, one of the things I find is extremely crucial is not just using two-dimensional or cardboard like, you know, terms and phrases, but really making it real and personal. So just defining things is incredibly important, but then providing examples. And when you can also show real stories of people, in my case, it was stories of employees inside the organization. Right? So we were able to get a series of about 6 different stories. 3 of them were anonymous and 3 of them were non-anonymous, talking about their invisible disability. And there was one story, literally, it could have been my story. I thought I was the only one like me. Like just this one moment of reading someone else's story, it's ignited the sense of belongingness, that I wasn't alone. Right? I'm not as odd or different than I think I am. And then the third part of the series was on disclosing. And it was really on helping individuals who have them make the decision around how should I disclose to my peers, to my manager, if I choose to do so. But also how, as a manager or a peer, should I support someone who does disclose to me? And as I was doing research for this part of the series, I had found an article, I believe it was on CNN News, that from like 2 years prior, or actually no, from like 2 months prior, that talked about the importance of, as you're introducing yourself to someone you want to share, right, is actually being, like I'd already done, providing definitions. Talking about what my strengths are, as I said before, superpowers. And my superpower is my ability to distill complex pieces of information down into their simplest of components. I have this extreme sense of pattern recognition. But I struggle with relationships. I struggle with knowing when to stop talking. I don't necessarily see the cues, but I get excited about sharing information with people and helping people. And that can be misinterpreted, and I can be misunderstood quite often. So what I ended up sharing in this article was, you know, these techniques, but also an example of what I call an about me deck. And I've used that in my last couple of companies, as I'm introducing myself to my new team, as I'm introducing myself to peers, and then slowly, as I develop more relationships where I feel safe inside of the organization, I start to share that as well. Now, I would say that's probably how I started about 5 years ago. Right now, I pretty much tell anybody and everybody I am autistic, because I think it's important that I be my true and authentic self. And even if that means I may not get the next job or I may not get the promotion, I'm at a point in my life, I just don't care. Right? So that's number one. And this is actually an example of an infographic that I created for that part 1 of that series that talks about, it's tiny, tiny print. I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants to see it. But that talks about what invisible disabilities are, and then what are the top 5, right? And then what does that actually mean for individuals who suffer from that particular disability? When we rolled this out, the feedback we got was pretty amazing from the people that said, I had no idea that, you know, there was this thing called chronic dizziness, right? That could actually keep people, they were just blown away by these types of disabilities that would never consider, you know, something that would actually get in the way of someone being able to live their lives fully or to work, right? But then I also had people reaching out to me personally, thanking me for being vulnerable and transparent and sharing my story and talking to me about, oh, my grandchildren, or, you know, my neighbor's kid, or, you know, and just like, I didn't understand what autism was. This is super helpful, right? This is just 1 or 2 people at a time. And we'll come back to that point at the end. And then this past April, we had World Autism Acceptance Month. This was actually led by our head of our culture and inclusion leader. So they created an article just on the history of autism. And I asked that we, again, make it a little bit more personal. And so there were 2 of us that wrote stories, but this time I actually became even more vulnerable. And I shared that story internally, but you can also find that same story on LinkedIn. And what happened from that story was absolutely amazing, in that there were now, before it was just employees saying, oh, I know someone with autism. Now it was employees coming and saying, I'm autistic too. It's so brave that you were able to share your story. I'm scared. Like, how did you do it? So now there are 5 individuals that came to me, and we're going to start to create our own support group, right? They're not quite comfortable with sharing, outside of that group yet. So these are 2 examples of ways in which we are creating awareness and educating and helping people to understand that kind of the breadth and depth of autism, but also how a person lives, their lived experience, right? And how those can vary depending upon the person and the type of disability, right? As we know with autism, it is a wide range and spectrum, right? So in terms of an outcome, one of the things that we saw from the efforts that we put in, so I mentioned this earlier, there is in the US, there is a requirement for all businesses that are federal contractors or subcontractors, where they have to actually invite their employees to voluntarily self-identify whether or not they have a disability, and this has to be done every 5 years. We launched the self-ID campaign. The Ability Alliance had a lot of influence in being able to help shape the language, demonstrate, in a very safe way, the value of disclosing, and again, being voluntary, but also being not like being. There's only one person the whole company would actually know, right? And we were able to go from a certain percentage of people, which was relatively low, being willing to self-identify as having a disability, that increased by 15%, and was very heavily attributed to the work that the ERG did. And we actually got a pretty high percentage response rate as well. As you can see here, 73% of employees actually responded. So they were, even though not all of them said they had a disability, they were still willing to participate in the campaign and say they didn't have a disability. So very strong engagement. So I just want to wrap up here. Creating inclusive work environments is a journey. These are just but 2 examples of how we've tried to begin that journey, but it does take purposeful action. It's very intentional. It's got to be on an omni-channel approach. It's got to be personal if we want to start to see behaviors change. We talked about education, awareness, and how that is foundational, right? But it's acceptance. It's acceptance of my disability and my differences and my strengths and my not so good strengths, right? Being able to accept people for who they are. But ultimately, I feel that the goal is not really about just understanding people with disabilities, but it's also about taking the time to understand the unique and lived experiences of all people, all abilities, all races, all ethnicities. If you think back to my story, nobody knew what I was going through, yet I may have had very abnormal behaviors. I may have acted out. I may still have challenges, and I do still have challenges as an adult. But if we take the time to truly understand a person, and instead of assuming why they're behaving a certain way or why they're responding or why they show up a certain way, but rather giving them the benefit of the doubt, showing empathy and patience, then I believe that's really what we should be focused on, not just about inclusivity for specific groups, but inclusivity for all. Thank you.
Your speech was really inspired, and we still have a few minutes. Colleagues, please, if you have some question and to communicate with each other, because to the next speaker we have 6 minutes, so we can communicate also to ask a question each other. If you have some question to Michael.
I have a question for Michael.
Sure.
Michael, part of the work I do is teaching and working with emotional intelligence. So I did a workshop for a group of leaders last week. It's so funny that this comes up now. And she came up to me on the break and said, I have a person on my team who kind of, I don't even know what it was, because now that I'm listening to you, it could have been anything of what you're sharing. She said, all I know is she doesn't, because part of emotional intelligence is reading clues. Like your brain is wired to read social cues, know when to stop talking. That was one of the things. You said, oh, I don't know how to coach her, because we were talking about coaching and, that kind of thing. So my question to you is, now that you're out, if that's a way to put it, how do you, like if someone's managing you, what do you say about them helping you identify cues when you're going too far, when you're stepping over boundaries? Was there some sort of communication between you and your direct report? How you manage the workplace?
Yeah, so I will tell you what I've shared, but I will tell you that most people don't take me up on it. And that is, as I said, I have my kind of superpower, and then I talk about where I fall short, and basically what I call it actually is where I need your help. So where do I need your help, right? So if I'm talking too much in a meeting, like sending me a ping, hey, Michael, you might want to give someone else. I also have a Post-it note I have on my laptop and my computer that literally says, shut up, Michael. So sometimes little signals, right? I tend to also, like there's some things that because I work remotely, there are some things that are going to be very apparent if I'm on camera versus things if I'm in person. I struggle a lot more in person. So loud noises, loud sudden noises, loud noises, repetitive noises, right? So being able to have my manager understand, right, that it's important for me to be able to wear headphones in the office. Sometimes I may not actually go into a conference room with everyone else, right? Even if we're all shown up, right? Because that is going to, basically what happens for me with everything causes me anxiety. Absolutely everything. Discomfort, anxiety. And then I also have no poker face, right? So, and I think, theater helped a lot with, but in terms of me being very expressive and with my face, right? But I also can't hide how I'm feeling, right? And so asking for feedback, I roll my eyes a lot. So there are things that are definitely holding me back, and they probably will hold me back. And I'm okay with that to a certain extent. So it's just being completely transparent is so incredibly important, and making sure that the people who know about my disability, that they understand how to help me and what I need their help with, right?
Yeah, so part of effective leadership and management is creating partnerships. I say, become a partner, not a parent. So this is a great discussion to have with your manager is, let's partner, and I need your help with this. So it feels like you're getting their permission to ping you, or to say, I'm going to time you. And if you talk more than, I literally had an idea of having a clock timer or a sand timer, something, particularly if you're doing remote. But a partnership where there's an understanding and a vulnerability, so that person gets permission to be direct and candid.
Yeah, one of the things that I also do is, especially if I'm not the one doing the speaking, it's someone else speaking. So but I like to ask a lot of questions. I'm very curious. I'm very interested, and I want them to feel like they're engaged as well, right? So I care very much about people. I have a technique where I always have a notebook next to me, and I write down the thing that I want to talk about. And then I just let the person keep speaking, because part of it is I'm afraid it's going to leave my head. But it's like such a good, it's not about me hearing my own voice. Something I know is going to really help them or the audience or my team members. And then when they're done talking, I'll look at it. And if it's still actually important, then I'll ask it. And these are some of these things I just figured out. Like, I did not know I had ADHD until very late in life. I was an incredibly good student, but I also had 15,000 different notebooks and colored pencils and markers and Post-it notes. I had everything. It was not easy at all, right? But I always sit in the front of the classroom, because I knew if I sat in the back, I wasn't going to pay attention, but I didn't know what that was called, right? So.
I also appreciate you talking about stories, because that kind of goes back to the unconscious bias thing. We see a person and then we create their story for them
Right.
instead of
Yeah.
letting
That was
people discover people by learning their story.
Right.
And that storytelling is so powerful. That's such an important
Yeah.
idea.
And I
know?
think
Yeah,
what's the
thank
most
you.
important thing to do is that if someone does disclose to you, ask them what that means for them. Right? Oh, that's great. Right. Then because if you don't ask them, you're not curious, you're going to make assumptions, right? So, well, tell me a little bit. I had someone say to me recently, what's your flavor of autism? And I was like, you know what, I'm not going to be offended by that because I understand what they meant by it, right? They were like, but I also had people at our ERG fair in our Tempe location say, look, I don't know anything about autism. Teach me, right? So it's that curiosity but being willing to understand other people, like just because I have chronic fatigue, like what does that actually mean? How does that actually play out for me in the workplace? How does it affect my personal life, right? Being curious about one another I think is really the most important thing here, right? Instead of jumping to those conclusions, making assumptions about people's experiences, their motivations, their mood, right? It can have absolutely nothing to do, right, with you or me, right? It could become something completely different. So taking that time to treat people like people is really what I think is key here.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience, because it's really useful to hear everyone. It was truly amazing.
Thank you for giving me a safe space to do it. I just
Thank you
want you to
so
know
much.
that this is the first time that I've told my full story publicly.
It was really perfect.
Thank you.
And thank you for that you share this. And I want to invite our next speaker. He is from Ukraine, and I'm pleased to introduce Alexei Ivasov. He is an HR business manager from Ukraine. He was sharing insight with us about our Ukrainian situation. Alexei, are you with us?
Yes, hello everyone. So today, as HR business manager at IT Sport, I want to talk about such an important topic as the problem of employing veterans in Ukraine. So today we will talk about the problem of employing veterans. The problem is the practical implementation of social guarantees, attitude of employers and work colleagues, and what are the options to solve this problem. So first of all, the essence of the problem. One of the challenges faced by veterans after leaving the military is employment. And as it turned out, there is currently a whole set of problems in the job search process. The imbalance of state programs in the field of employment, very attitude of employers towards veterans, and sometimes outright reluctance to hire them. Inconsistency of the qualifications and skills of the veterans themselves with modern demands on the labor market. Problems with retraining, adaptation in the team, and etc. Next, the problem is the practical implementation of social guarantees. Although the government provides social guarantees and employment benefits for veterans, one of the problems for the demobilized is that information about these guarantees has to be found in various sources, laws, and regulations. This significantly complicates the process of veterans exercising their rights and confirms the need to adopt accessible and comprehensive mechanisms that could regulate relations with the participation of veterans in various spheres of life within the legal environment. 100% of the respondents noted that there are major problems of effective use of the declared state employment programs in real life, taking into account specific situations and individual requests. According to a survey Participants, these programs are often not results-oriented and do not take into account the requests of a specific veteran. Also, survey participants talk about the lack of a reliable and transparent mechanism for the allocation and use of state support funds for veterans, which quality and effectiveness control of services and their providers. All of this, they believe, has extremely negative systemic effects and often leads to the marginalization of veterans. Veterans employees set information about programs, budget, implementation mechanism, etc. should be publicly available. They also note that it is no less important to be able to implement in practice all that the state offers to veterans in theory. Next, we move to attitude of employers and work colleagues. At the same time, the available government benefits for veterans, even if they are small, can become a disincentive for employers who do not want to hire veterans because of the additional difficulties and costs involved. The lack of a reimbursement system for these costs in Ukraine complicates the process of employing veterans. Examining the difficulty of returning veterans to the previous workplace, it is clear that readjusting veterans to the workplace is difficult and requires support and resources from employers. The lack of favorable conditions for the return and successful integration of veterans into the collective, paying special attention to veterans with special needs who received a disability as a result of the war, was negatively evaluated by the veterans during the interviews. Veterans with physical disabilities face significant challenges such as limited access to work, uncomfortable working conditions, financial difficulties, feeling of social isolation, and low self-esteem. In their opinion, it is important that employers take care of the organization of the workplace, reducing workload and increasing wages. So what is the option? One of the possible employment options for veterans is retraining, the opportunity to improve their qualifications and educational level. However, the funds received for education and retraining for veterans and their family members are often insufficient, which is complicated by restrictions on the choice of programs and educational institutions in which to study or improve qualifications. This means that veterans often fail to effectively realize these opportunities due to various circumstances, in particular, due to the lack of system support for monitoring the effectiveness of services and focus on the final result. Some veterans had the desire but couldn't take advantage of the preferential conditions of study. In particular, they noted the unavailability or selectivity of the provision of benefits for the education of children of combatants, as well as the limited number, availability, and low reliability of the use of vouchers. In addition, the low amount of partial funding actually doesn't make it possible to provide full-fledged, high-quality education. And what the veterans themselves offer? The interviewed combatants are convinced that special attention should be paid to creating conditions to ensure equal access to work, social adaptation, and professional rehabilitation of war veterans. Regarding the possible option for solving the problem with education, 100% of respondents said that the mechanism for receiving benefits from the payment of communal services works best. And this can be an example of an effective mechanism for receiving targeted financial support. Another important aspect is the need to ensure effective mechanism for monitoring compliance with labor legislation in terms of ensuring the rights of veterans. This means not only strengthening the responsibility of employers, but also creating conditions for veterans in which they can freely defend their rights in cases of discrimination in the workplace. And that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Alexei. And I want to say that I didn't tell about our organization totally because we have a few minutes left, and I will explain what we are doing. Actually, we are a charitable foundation, and we are providing this educational educational for free for such people who have individuals with disabilities, for veterans and for their family, because we are an IT company and we have such experience, and many people, they don't want what to do. They do not have work, and we want to provide them this knowledges in IT. In the beginning, not so hard, not like coding, but in marketing, in digital, in lead generation. So they just can start easily their new profession remotely and work not only in Ukraine, but also globally. So this is what we are doing. That's why we are gathered this, and we want to show that it's really a problem, especially in our country, because it's this situation. So many people who are now just have many problems. They even don't have salary to just feed their family. So that's why. And thank you so much, Alexei, for your speech. And I see, John, I'm sorry. I see you. You are the next speaker, yes. And I want to introduce you. Yes, and John Colley-Schwarzkopf is highly recommended executive leadership advisor with a focus on holistic business and organizational development. She helps organizations operate optimally by integrating the human aspects of their enterprise while developing high-performing leadership and management teams. She believes that high performance begins with and within each individual. Her overriding business philosophy is when we are our best human selves, we will have our best organization. Additionally, when we see a business organization as an ecosystem of talent and through the lens of the human experience, we can realize our full potential. She is also an inspiring speaker and author. She has shared the passion with thousands globally as a LinkedIn learning author, has spoken in very major cities and states in the US, a unique distinction. My apologies. My apologies. Consistently recognized among her peers, she was named to the 2023 Top 50 Global Thought Leaders, Top 100 HR Influencer, LinkedIn Learning Global Teachers Day. She has also been quoted and featured in a variety of media, both radio and print, such NBC News, Huffington Post, Harvard Business Review, Daily Telegraph UK, and has authored several books, most notably The Human Quotient, Brain on Fire, Unleashing Your Creative Superpowers, and most recently, The Real You Work, a holistic approach to career planning and management. Please, John, take the stage. Give you a word.
Thank you. It's really just an honor. And after all, I when we were talking about where to plug me in, I was like, okay, well, I think this is the perfect place after listening to the challenges of hiring for the incredible heroic veterans that are part of the Ukraine experience. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my slides here. And I think what you're going to experience here in the next few minutes is really just about how to see work differently. And as someone who's worked in HR for 25 years, I work with people who hire, I've worked with executives. We really do need to reimagine hiring and to really see it in a holistic way. And and so when you think about that, and that's why I started out as a career coach, and I've now come full circle to a career coach again, and released the book The Real You at Work, because as in the intro, when we are our best human selves, we will have our best businesses. And so when we look at hiring, and by the way, as a former recruiter for one of the top firms in Chicago, hiring in itself has still not changed that much in terms of how we see people. And I'll go into that a little bit here in just a second. So I'd like for us for a moment to think about when you think about hiring, what are the qualities of the best performers, or I actually like to use the word contributors. what are the qualities? And typically, old school is we look at skills first. We look at their resume. We have a perception of what those, because really when we read a resume, it's our perception of what we see in the resume. And we say, okay, did they do this? Did they do this? Do they have these skills? That's typically how we look at a resume. And yet when people are hired, my phrase is we hire people for their perceived skills. We keep them for who they are. Because ultimately, the question that becomes, what are the most common reasons for underperforming employees? When we let people go, what are the reasons why? And in my 25 plus years of experience in this endeavor, this is not, it's not like I didn't do like research, but I can guess of all the thousands of people I've talked with over the years. I would say 98% of underperforming employee issues are not necessarily skill-based issues. They are maturity issues. They are emotional intelligence issues. They are social maturity issues, not necessarily skills. And so what's interesting about that is when you look at hiring holistically, you look at, okay, what does it really take to hire the best people who are going to contribute at their best? Now, when we look at the folks who've already shared, I think about Michael, and I think about what was shared by Eva, is that you notice that skill wasn't really what we talked about. It was, and in fact, what they shared was the passion of representing something beyond a disability. And so when we look at people, going beyond our unconscious bias, what we want to see is we want to really see a person holistically. So I actually use this chart. I encourage my clients to use this chart when hiring, because when you think about the outcomes of a business, the KPIs, the revenue and profits, even the stock value, everything we do in a business goes through these. It goes through someone's mind. It goes through someone's personality. It goes through their maturity. It goes through their heart. It goes through their motivation. And then, see where it is at the bottom? Their technical, their skill set, the capacity, bandwidth, and capabilities. And what I'm suggesting is the most profitable, and I hate to use that word, but I'm going to because it is a business, and the most important skill set or capability, or how you see a person, is not necessarily their skills. It is who they are as a person. Because who they are as a person, it's what's going to drive them to use the skills to then get the KPIs, the profits, etc. So for example, when I'm doing a management training class, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked, how do I motivate my employees? How do I motivate my team? My suggestion is they should be able to motivate themselves because of the kind of heart they have, because they're matched with the best role and then love the role and they want to do the job. I can't imagine Michael or Eva coming in to their jobs every day thinking, God, I'm not into it today. I can't imagine them, because they are so tied in to the passion of what they do. They don't have to be motivated. No one has to sit there and motivate them. They are naturally motivated because they have heart. And at the heart of hiring is hiring for who people are. And that heart is going to fuel their motivation and their desire. You hire someone who feels left out. You hire someone who needs to feed their family. You hire someone who is desperate to be retrained after an injury in a war. You got heart. So what does heart and motivation do? It opens up their capacity then to learn things. Now, sure, they have to have, aptitude, and things like that. However, the core part of hiring is that we hire backwards. Traditionally, we look at skills first and the people last. I'm not sure how much you guys agree with that. But then you would say, oh, like, what do you do for hobbies? Or, like, what have you done in your past life? they look at, well, maybe we should look at what they did first and then see what their skills are, because that really is what's going to be the driving force. So from this chart, what areas have the greatest overall, now think about this, the greatest overall impact to a company and customers? I want you to think about that for a second. It's an important question. Now, there's another chart I didn't include in here, is something called the ripple effect. And that is both short-term and long-term. Each employee has a ripple effect. And I'm going to suggest to you, folks who have more heart, more passion, more spirit are going to have a higher and longer ripple effect than those who don't. So I'm going to go back to Michael for a second. Michael was hired for a certain job description. And yet, look at what she initiated within her company that has added value upon value upon value that probably wasn't even part of her job description in the first place. So I call it ROC, the return on compensation for Michael hiring her is so exponential for short and long-term impact, it'd be hard to quantify. And I'm going to suggest to you probably millions of dollars when you look at her long-term impact with the company based on what she's paid in compensation. Her ROC is off the charts. So when you look at people and you look at what is their impact, what is their contribution beyond, hiring beyond the job description, asking what is going to be their contribution overall, what's going to be their impact to customers and clients overall. That's an important question to ask beyond, oh, what's your skill and what did you do in your last job? Y'all with me on the bigger impact? It's phenomenal. So when you look at a holistic view, there's so much more value in seeing people beyond their disability, because you ask differently. What are they able to do? What kind of impact? What's their capacity to make a greater influence? So this is actually a great chart to use for interviewing. Just asking, where's your heart? Where's your passion? What really engages you? What values do you have? What is your 3 top values, and share with me how you demonstrated them. And your ability to be focused. Some are hyper focused, and that's a good thing because you can get better outcomes that way. Attitude. I can't tell you how many times managers are upset with people's attitude. Try to hire someone who's been in a war and now is grateful for a job. What kind of attitude they're going to have? They're going to be so grateful, so engaged, so willing, so flexible, so open that they're going to want to do the things that we are asking them to do. Here's how I see it. The greatest source of professional effectiveness doesn't start with skills. It starts here. It starts with their energy, their effort, their motivation, their desire, their focus, and their confidence. That's where it starts. Then you add in, because if this isn't here, they're not going to use this. They're not going to use this. They won't care about that if they don't have this first. Then that is going to then get channeled into results. So when we're thinking about contribution, we're thinking about performance. What we want to see is, okay, what are the results going to be? What is going to be the contribution of the results, long-term and short-term, and beyond the job description, so I can get the highest ROC, return on compensation, for every dollar spent in any sector, nonprofit, taxes, when you work for government. Every dollar spent, no matter where it comes from, is going to get a higher higher return. So if you're not getting results, I'm going to suggest, as a manager and as a leader, something here is missing or weak. And as we look at reimagining hiring, reimagining the kind of people that we want to hire, look at this first, and then look at the skills. Now, one thing I'm going to add, and I'm so glad I followed Alexi, because this is really what I consider to be I consider this the cherry on top of the cupcake that's already been made, and that's this: grit. Grit has been known to be the #1 quality of successful people. You tell me veterans don't have grit. You tell me that folks that are very painfully aware of their disabilities, hidden or otherwise, what they've gone through the years to continue to work to be seen. Tell me that an LGBTQ person doesn't have grit for trying to stay true to their authentic self in spite of all the challenges. That heart, that mind is gold. I call that human resource gold, because all of these are human resources. All of these contribute to the result and to the outcome. And so now, the other part of my conversation today was about the myth of a skill. And probably think people are thinking, okay, what's that about? Because we got to have skills. You got to have skills. Got skills, you got to have those. I do want to suggest that in our industry of human resources, that whole umbrella, we misuse that word a lot, I believe. And here's what I mean by that. When you think of a skill, and this also comes from sports, being a former athlete, I put former in quotes. The skill is really a mastered behavior. It's something that people do really well. I think we overuse that, because in my experience, I think people could do things, but I don't know that people do things super well. There are people who do. There are people who are masters at certain skills, but that doesn't mean they're super skilled. They can do a lot of job functions. And I think this is important nuance when you're hiring. You may want someone to have a mastered skill, but is that necessary to get the outcome? There are people who are capable of doing certain jobs and getting the results we want without exceptional mastery. And that's the difference between a skill and a capability. In my experience, many people are capable of many things, but they may not be skilled, but they may be capable of getting the results we need in the business environment. That's a really important distinction, because many more people could be hired than are. Many more people are able to do what we need them to do. They're just not masters at it, nor do they need to be. But they do need to be capable. And then additionally, they do have to have the aptitude. So aptitude is a natural capacity to learn something. And so here's a great example of that. There's one of my clients in Virginia. They have a special program in IT. That's why I'm so excited to share the story, where they source people globally. I'm going to connect you guys. They source people globally, and they retrain them. They train them in core IT functions. They don't get a degree. It's not some big deal. It is a targeted technical engagement for 6 months, where they train them on specific things, and then they work remotely to support my client. So when I met this team of the first cohort of trainees, you guys, they were from people from all over the world, all ages, just got out of college, a guy who was a veteran in his 40s, who had worked at the best, and there are people who worked in retail. One guy from like Indonesia that was supporting his family doing Uber. I mean, if you saw these people's background, you think, on paper, I would never hire this person. And yet they went through the targeted 6-month technical training program, and now they work as full-time IT support professionals for my client. And I find that to be so encouraging. So they have reimagined hiring. They have reimagined what a contributing employee and contributor can look like, because why? They had the aptitude to learn it, and they had the heart and the motivation to be re-employed in a different kind of way. Now, the final component of capability, skills, aptitude, and talent, aptitude is talent. And that is the ability to do something well that's innate. Now, here's what's really interesting, because we have aptitude, and then we have all the way to gifted to genius. What I think is interesting is no matter what time you are in life, there are people who have aptitudes for things that have never been tapped. Great example of this is, our former president, President Bush, who now is an artist. He paints. If you would see his paintings, you'd be shocked. Well, I mean, I was shocked. I mean, y'all might not be, but I was shocked at how incredible his paintings are. Did he paint a lot when he was younger? And no, this is a latent skill set, an aptitude that has been dormant. So to Eva, both Eva and Michael have referenced, there is potential that is not being tapped. Why? Because we have a backwards, antiquated view of hiring. Because what my client says is, hey, these people have an aptitude. There is potential to learn and then plug that into this need we have for this specific thing. If we reimagine hiring, if we are more creative in our career pathing, which is something we talk about in HR a lot, then we will be able to plug people in specifically to needs, to meet their needs, and then to meet the needs of company in non-traditional ways. By the way, the whole definition of innovation is to do something unconventional, is do something that is out of the box, to do something that's out of the norm. Well, how about we be innovative in how we hire? How about we be innovative in how we see people when we are hiring them? How about we do that? So, just in summary, heart, desire, and motivation are, I think, the most important human resource. Character and emotional intelligence is equal or more valuable than a skill. Skills are mastered knowledge and behaviors, not always necessary. The mastered part is not always necessary to get needed outcomes in the business. People tend to be way more capable than skilled. And if you're seeing people from a disability, unconscious bias, that means we are creating their story and minimizing what they might be capable of, because all we see as what they're discapable of. I had bad grammar, but you know what I mean by that. Aptitude, the ability to learn or acquire, gets very little attention in hiring, and yet is critical to the employee's growth and long-term contribution. And that can be nurtured. So when you think about it, we have so much more untapped potential in the marketplace. If we just open up our minds, reimagine what's necessary, and look at what are the results we need, what do we need to do that, and then can we train those who are capable and who are willing and who are going to end up being our best employees, both short-term and long-term. Okay, any questions? I really love to have some discussion around this if we have a bit of time.
Yes, it would be wonderful. Yeah, we have 7 minutes left, so I think so it will be very grateful to discuss. Colleagues, please.
Yeah, I want to know, how do we convince employers of this? Like how do we, because it's, I mean, I'm going to say it from a personal standpoint, right? I have all these technical skills, but apparently they're not enough, right? I have another article I'm working on called "Not Enough, ... right? But I have all these other things. And like, how do we help employers think about hiring for potential, not just what they've already done? And does it fit exactly the box of what we need them to do now? How do we get them out of that mindset?
Yeah, Michael, and this is part of my frustration as an HR professional because of being in the industry for almost 30 years, which I'm kind of dating myself here. But it is, and then we have the next crop of new generation of HR folks who are kind of perpetuating the same kind of thinking. It is a lot of discussion with our HR. In fact, for those of us who want to be pioneers, it's going to our HR department to say, let's think of this differently. Let's try something. My favorite phrase, my favorite thing to use is a pilot. Let's do a pilot because it's minimum risk and you can tweak it at you. That's innovation. try little things, tweak, try little things, tweak. So it is, I call it micro milestones. It's helping someone shape their thinking over a period of time through trial, through innovation. And so it can be proposed as an innovative pilot. It can be proposed as, let's try something different. You could be, now, one of the things that to your point, Michael, is what are the values of your key leadership and your HR department? If an authentic intrinsic value is DEI, then you appeal to their value. If their value is talent, if their value is supporting veterans, which there's a lot of companies who have specialty programs, I know in the US around supporting veterans. So find their value point, their intrinsic value point, and then appeal to them with a special kind of pilot to begin to, hire beyond the job description.
Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your speech. It was amazing, really great. And if you don't have any question, we can go to our next speaker. How do you think? But anyway, we have left 4 minutes. Maybe somebody, because it's much better. And in the end, we will just go and be free.
Yeah, I actually just as we wrap out, I'd like to hear Eva's perspective because she works with executives and decision makers. Hear your point of view on the things that I shared, Eva.
Actually, all this time, I was thinking that some qualities are very important for leaders, like kindness, integrity, understanding, empathy. And at the same time, they're quite rare, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's social intelligence, actually. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, it's very important to understand, to put yourself in other people's shoes and understand their own perspectives and see that, as you said, they can offer so much more. They're not just their disabilities. Yeah, I was thinking it literally costs nothing to be nice. Still, so many people don't want to be nice. But again, I'd like to say that fortunately, I've seen that this has slowly started to change over the last years, and especially after the pandemic, because I think pretty much everyone suffered mentally, emotionally. And well, in Greece, especially, because I am based in Greece, it used to be a taboo to talk about mental health issues. And now I see people opening up a little bit more. So I think we are on the right path. I believe it will take time, but we'll get there eventually, I hope.
Great points. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And I would love to introduce our next speaker, Jessica Glazer. She's from Canada. She's top Canadian recruiter listed among the world top 100 HR influencer in 2021. She's founder, president, recruitment director, headhunter at Mind HR. Mind HR is full cycle recruitment agency, is based in Canada, but help people around the globe, including US, Europe, and Asia. And please, Jessica, I saw you. Jessica was, but now unfortunately. Well, Jessica, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Unmute this.
There we go. So I'm unmuted. Thanks.
Welcome.
So I guess I don't need to introduce myself because that's what I was going to do to start.
Yes,
So
please introduce.
I know that a lot of the topics today, all the topics obviously are about diversity and inclusion, and that can end up repeating itself with what we have to say. Now, as a headhunter and a career coach and resume writer, I thought that, it's prevalent for individuals to understand. And I think it was Mikhail, you asked the question with how do we get hiring managers? So I think I'm going to start right away because on this topic, which was great. Thank you. But the idea of how we get hiring managers to change their perspective. And it becomes as human nature to resist change. People don't like change. They don't want to change, but they'll change if they can understand what's in it for them. And a hiring manager, when they're going to put somebody on their team, if you're presented, and there's different ways that they discuss about inclusion, diversity with resumes and hiding the names. I mean, eventually our internal stereotypes or their internal stereotypes will eventually and can come out. However, what's in it for them with including individuals that are of diverse backgrounds comes into the idea of the notion of what and how their team can be perceived, how their company can be perceived, and also if they want to go global, you can't be narrow-minded. You know, if you're lacking talent, you can't think that there's no talent out there if you're not going to look at somebody that has, you know, in my world or back in my day, they were called disabilities, but my son has told me that they are called abilities. I'm like, but we all have abilities. So I guess that's the point. But you're really narrowing down your search engines and your search capacity if you're not going to look at somebody that doesn't have an arm or that isn't no, and this is, you know, it may sound like a joke, but it's very true that these individuals that are in a wheelchair or they're neurodiverse or, you know, I mean, and neurodiversity now is every angle of a spectrum, right? So you can still pick and choose to a certain degree, of course, but they're narrowing down their talent so much by not being inclusive. And so how do you convince them is that if you have someone who's really strong, and if you're presenting them with a candidate that has all the qualifications and the only reason they don't want to hire them is color, or the only reason they don't want to hire them is a wheelchair, well, of course, if you really present it as like, well, that's not legal, right? So if I talk to a CEO, they're like, okay, well, bring me somebody, you know, bring me this one happens more often or more often, but I laugh about it because they're like, bring me somebody who's in their 40s that's not going to have kids. I'm like, well, in this day and age, someone in their 40s is going to have kids. I go, you might be better off with that person who's now in their 20s looking to get that career growth. And there's absolutely no stability. You don't know what stable is anymore. And you were talking about pre-COVID. I mean, jumpy after COVID. I mean, they just limit their talent pool so much if they're going to be narrow-minded and if they're not going to open up the scale to have somebody that can come on board that has a different mindset. And the way that I look at it and the way that I've explained it to owners or C-suite professionals is that your people are your foundation. They're the foundation of the company. So they are your pillars. And if you don't have a strong foundation, then from there you can't grow. And that ends up becoming a problem because if someone's vision is not to just have 1 employee, 5 employees, 10 employees, but they have a vision of growth. And, you know, I mentioned earlier the idea of, you know, if they want to have mergers and acquisitions, if they want to go internally, if they want to go nationally, well, then that mindset of who can I bring on board that's not me? Because we already have, I mean, we're all different, but we already have you. We already have I don't know, you know, we already have what used to be the stereotype of the white, older 40-year-old, 50-year-old male. We already have that. You need to bring diversity because the world is diverse. So if you're this old, you know, I could say for myself, if I'm only going to consider women in their 40s, that's our frame of mind. I mean, my brain works a little bit differently, but overall, like we have a certain frame of mind. So if you're going to stay in that bubble, well, how can you grow? How can your team grow? How can your product grow if that's the only way that you're going to think? And so if you're going to convince someone else to bring someone on board that's not their mold, well, convince me why you want your mold when you already have it, right? We're not making perfect cookies in a bakery that need to look exactly the same. If we were, then I would tell them, look, if you want your perfect cookie cutter, like, look, we're all different, but it's going to be boring. You're not going to have any innovation. Nothing's really going to change. And if you're looking for change, which is why usually someone's looking to hire, unless they're going to be replacing somebody, then it's the only way to really do it. is that to have that diversity and to have that inclusion, as much as they'll push back on it, you kind of have to push forward. And listen, I'll say what I'm thinking, so I'll call them out on it. Well, why? Well, what's your reason why not? Right? You have your why. You want to hire someone. You're looking for ABCD qualifications. They have them, but they don't walk. They're in a wheelchair. And what's the problem? In fact, it's to your benefit that you have that person that has a wheelchair, because when you want to have other talent, they're going to see that, and it becomes, I was actually, sorry, I switched my sentence, but I was in Mexico and I loved it. I don't know if anyone's ever, was it Mexico? Ecuador? I think it was Mexico. We had a stopover. It was a very long day. But in Mexico, all the agents, when you check in, are actually the individuals that greet you. I think Mexican Airlines, every agent that greets you when you first walk in actually is in a wheelchair. And you walk in and you're like, wow, that's so nice. Like, what an amazing company that's what that they've actually chosen. I mean, I think that's actually now like a reverse discrimination. Now that I'm going to think about it a bit more, because every single one is in a wheelchair, but it still has you thinking like, that's such a nice company. What a great company to work for. So now if you're talking to a manager that's looking to hire and you have somebody that has this exclusion mindset, and you now are able to convince them why they can, those individuals, first of all, they fear change. And the other thing is there's so much about ego. So you change their perspective to be, well, what if you did it and you were the first one in the company to bring this person on board? And this person excels and your team is actually doing better than what you thought it was going to be doing, because you now have a different type of mindset for your organization. And then they'll start to think, maybe talk to me more. It's like, give me a bit more information as to what do you mean? And then you slowly bring in the idea, and then you slowly bring up other organizations, and it doesn't have to be competitors. It could be the well-known organizations that do this, and you let them realize this can be you. And if you think of the idea that this can be you, and you can be that big, but then it becomes their ego in place that they've decided that they're going to do it. And so it's almost like I always say adults are like children, but they're just bigger versions. So you're just allowing them the opportunity to realize that that's what's best for them. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to stay stagnant and you're not going to be able to grow. And if you grow, it's always going to be in that same direction. You're not going to have, like, if your mindset and your idea is that there's a foundation and the foundation has to grow, and everyone has that same thought, well, you're building like this, because everybody has this frame. You can't grow upwards that way. Like, look, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, it looks like it's going to fall. Like, there's a reason you can't grow like this. Every building, every structure, every company builds like this to get higher. And if you only have one mind frame, then that pillar, you only have one pillar, and which it doesn't help if you want to grow. And that's how you get them to go on board, to realize, look, the talent pool out there worldwide is lacking. It is struggling, depending on which position you're looking for. But more often than not, it's very hard to find talent. But if you can be that company that broadens that mind frame and broadens that talent pool, well, then you're one step ahead. Because also remember, reputation is everything. You can have a bad reputation, you can have a good reputation. There often isn't in the middle, depending on the size of your org, or you can hide if you're really small. But even if you're small, that bad reputation doesn't go away. So if they could think of themselves of being the first, the innovative, I'm going to open up my talent pool. Why? Because A, it's illegal if you don't. B, you're going to be one of the pivotal structures that we can even use as an example for the organization. And then there's all these other reasons as to why you can't. And for them, it's mostly about their ego, right? Like, why am I going to do this? What is it? What's in it for me? And if you can convince them what's in it for them, then that's where their growth is going to continue. And that's how to convince them to have that type of organization, that structure, that team, because their reputation will be on the line. And they have the choice, right? You have the choice to have a great reputation. Everybody's going to end up wanting to work with you, because when you have inclusiveness, well, then you're opening up that door for conversation, right? It's also a frame of mind. There's a frame of mind that says, like, no, I only want somebody that's exactly like me. Or no, I had this amazing employees, like that last boy, but I had this, although maybe that's not the best example, but I had this amazing employee, and they left, they went to go to another company, and I'm never going to find them again. Find me that person. Okay, well, you know what? Now the world is your oyster. Let's not get stuck in the shell. What did you like about that person? And then now what else can we add that person was missing? And then you add for that team, that manager, that leader can now have, again, it's a more diverse team. And then that reputation comes into play again as to who, and then it's a company reputation that becomes even grander. So then there's ways to convince the other leaders of, look, it's working here. You're now struggling to find talent. Can we try to interview other people? Just try it. Try to interview this person. As long as they have everything that the individual is needing. If they don't, obviously it's not going to work. And in the beginning, of course, there's going to be pushback because people don't like change, but you call them on it. You say, what don't you like about it? Are you uncomfortable? Okay. And when you go to the gym and you're building a muscle, are you sore the next day? Well, you are. I go, and your brain is a muscle. So I'm going to hurt you a little bit, but you're going to get stronger, and your team will get stronger with it. And so if you follow my lead and you follow this, just try it. I'm not saying you have to hire them, but maybe you'll like them. And so that's what this was the strategy that I thought I would take, because I'm all about recruitment and career coaching and resume writing. So this was the angle that I thought would make most sense for everyone, to cover the idea of hiring individuals that are diverse. Because when you hire a diverse team, you can help grow your team. And the way to do that, and the way to handle the pushback, is to talk with the managers and also call them out on it. The reason why their egos are so big is because they're insecure, and the other side is that no one calls them out on their shit. No one does it. So if you do it, you gain that respect from them, as long as you do it in a professional manner. So if there's any other questions or anything, like I'm here, I can help, whatever you need.
I have a question and a comment. So going back to just great. Thank you so much. We live in the same world in terms of trying to convince people to do things and appeal to their values. One thing I think is interesting, if there is an employee or a talent deficit, becoming an employer of choice, meaning in terms of setting, like, you be the pioneer, you be the innovator. And then the other part about that is that a lot of the younger generation, their values are based on DEI. They, a 40-year-old or 50 hiring doesn't have the same mindset as someone in their 20s and 30s. And they look for companies who are inclusive. They look for companies who have social values, that sort of thing. So talk more about the mindset of becoming an employer of choice, particularly in light of, our forum today.
So it's funny, because I was going to talk about employer of choice, but I myself have a bit of an issue with that concept of 100 employees of choice and everything like that, because they end up, a lot of them do pay for it, to be honest. So if you want to be an employer of choice, you actually can just, you could Google it, you could pay. There's a lot of organizations that put you as the ones of choice. And then there's different brackets that they have to, if you're going to be a true employer of choice, depending on where you live, right? So there is top 100, top 50, top 40, I think there's top 10, but they have different targets that they have to hit. And so, there's different avenues that those employer of choice look at. So it's not just diversity. It also has to do with flexibility. Actually, they'll sometimes look at your cafeteria. Like they're looking at the amount of employees. They're looking at, sometimes it's also how you present yourself. So employer of choice, it really depends. There's so many different companies that do that employer of choice. So I actually do have a bit of an issue because I know for where I live, which is Montreal, Canada, I've seen some of those employers in choice and I'm like, those are my top hunting grounds, like, because they're not the best places to work. I was like, okay, you paid someone or something to do this. So that what I try and convince candidates and individuals is don't look at the employer of choice and don't necessarily look at the name brand companies. Of course, if we're looking at managers, usually looking at their competition is the best way to confront them for when it comes to diversity and inclusion. But when it comes to the candidate side or individuals that are looking to hire, I often say don't look at those top name brands because chances are they're riding on their names. And that's part of the problem because they don't treat everybody very well, but they have a great name. So everyone wants to work there because just because your brand is good doesn't mean your external brand is really good. Your internal brand isn't necessarily, and often, and I guess you agree, but
And
it's
if you
not
want
that
proof
good.
of that, go log on to Blind and you will see.
Yeah.
Even Glassdoor, they'll tell you.
Listen, I always say these companies are large for a reason. There's the good and the bad in everyone and everything. I said, and it's easier for these bigger companies to get lost in the shuffle more often than not because they go on a brand. So if you know the brand, it's like, oh, I love it. I love it. I'm like, yeah, I don't buy it because I don't want to support that. So that's my own personal issues with when it comes to the idea of an employer brand per se. But when you're talking about the companies and the people themselves, then that's your reputation. And that's usually industry specific. And that's how you're treating people. And so that comes down to when you have an inclusive and diverse mindset, it's that inclusive mindset that will give you and your department that reputation.
I think that part of that is that if going back to like if you're looking for talent, and if I walked in and I saw people that were like disabled or whatever, I'd think, oh my gosh, must be a very compassionate, caring place to work. Then I'm going to want to work there. So it's like an attraction thing, like going back to what Michael said, or Eva, it was about the qualities that are attractive to people are compassion, caring, human, kinds of things. And hiring that way, you will attract the talent that you really want. Do you want talent? Here's a strategy you may not have considered before.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for your speech. You inspired us. This conversation between you, it's perfect, like you wanted, like near a fireplace. So, and our next speaker, I see Yolanda Junado. I hope that you are with us because it's our time. Yes. I want to represent, she's from Nigeria. She's founder of Career Life Nigeria, people and cultural leader for a leading tech startup, holds the Senior Professional of Human Resources International certification from the Human Resources Certification Institute USA, associate of the Chartered Institute of Personal Management of Nigeria, ICF certified professional coach, and the author of the All-Inclusive Career Handbook, Top 20 People Disruptive Leaders Nigeria in 2023, Top 15 Career Influencers in Africa by the Workboat magazine, and also the Top 10 Platinum Members of Career Influencers 2022. and also top 150 global HR influencer by Social Nicole. Please, Yolanda, take a stage. Welcome, welcome here, welcome here. We here have very, very good conversation between your colleagues, and it's like home. So welcome.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation earlier. I mean, taking a lot of notes. I hope I don't even repeat some of the things that have been said. So I'll share my screen, and I think when I was invited, I think some of the things I thought about are like, okay, things I can totally relate to. And as an HR leader, who sometimes helps to influence or kind of like talk to people, some of my colleagues, because I also have like a community of HR folks in Nigeria and in Africa as well. We have this conversation. So it's actually nice to actually talk about it. So we're talking on strategies for overcoming barriers to inclusion in the workplace. Again, I think some people have talked about it earlier, but I would just maybe talk about some things, or probably focus on some things that have not been talked about. I mean, when I did a bit of research, and there was a study that happened where they had like a focus group where like asking both employers and employees about some of the main barriers to inclusion. Just by the way, in case if you hear some noise, pardon me, my kids are running around. Yeah. And when I was reading it in my mind, I was like, I totally agree. I don't know what happens in other parts of the world, but I feel like we're all in the same boat. It's also similar here in Nigeria, and I think the African context as well. I mean, some of the things like fear of working with someone different, right? I mean, I've seen line managers have or once or unconsciously voice out their unconscious bias. Like they don't know they're saying these things, but they're actually saying these things, right? And like, so one of the major barriers is like fear of working with someone different. Like, do I think I will cope? And employees fearing that disclosing their identity, I will get rejected, and it's very valid. Another one is like clear expectation. I mean, I probably just want to fill my diversity quota and just make people feel like I'm actually doing something good. Meanwhile, they just expect the barest minimum and not put this person to like task that would, encourage this person or at least make this person show their value, right? So that's another thing, that assumption. Another barrier is like the system, right? And there's what is within your control and what is outside your control. As an HR professional, you can't literally force people down hiring managers' throats. You just have to do that work of advising and kind of like helping them see the reality. I think my skill as a coach has helped me to not like telling people what to do, because it's like, oh, you think you know my work more than me, but in reality, it's not that I know your work more than you, and I'm trying to say you cannot think this way. It's just asking you some of these questions that can help you see that you're actually being resistant to some of these things. I think that's how we HR professionals can support, not telling people, but actually coaching them through the process indirectly. So yes, resistance from hiring managers and job seekers are literally put off by the long and complex job description. Like hiring managers, they really craft the job description in a way that you can't even, that generally not inclusive, right? Culture. Sometimes you say things and that's not the reality of how you think or what you mean, right? And so sometimes policies are often not integrated with their overall goal. So the goal is set up in a way that, it's set up it's not actually inclusive. The fifth one is like lack of communication, inaccessible communication tools. You're not, even if you work remotely, how are you even ensuring that the tools you're using are actually inclusive and people who may be able to, I work a lot with software engineers, and a lot of people work remotely. Right now, I think like 85% of our workforce are like remote. Yeah, and so even in communication, how you communicate with people and the tools you use, it has to be very inclusive. And physical barriers as well. I mean, I think those are very like common, inaccessible facilities. That if either you have a ramp and elevator that makes it easier for people to kind of like show that makes it very easier. So I'm just going to go straight into some of the strategies to overcome it. As I mean, if you're a decision maker or you're someone who has the opportunity to influence or advise or encourage or coach one way or the other, I think creative and actual inclusive culture, right? Say culture is the way of life. Culture is how you, it's what you do and what you don't do. It's what you encourage and what you don't encourage. Sometimes people think that, it's what you say, but no, it's not really what you say. Sometimes it's even how you think, right? The way you think about inclusivity, how you think about inclusion can even influence the kind of culture you build. You might, see it as, oh, yeah, it's my role as an HR person. I need to promote inclusion, but you don't really think that way, right? So it starts from the top. I always say, you start from the top, and the process can be very stressful to kind of like change the top, but leaders should actually visibly support, even in your own sphere, support and advocate for inclusion. Um, you know, Awareness and training as well. It's not just thinking it and saying, oh yeah, we do this. How often do you make efforts to enlighten other team members? So yes, the leadership may support these things, but there might be some team members. I mean, I'm talking from experience. There's some people that you start something from the top, and there's some people that are just like roadblocks. I mean, they're just going to be like, you just said your own, I'm going to do my own, right? And even when you're working as an HR person to change some things, they will just be like, that's your business. It's not my business here, right? And so constant education has helped me. And I feel help would help other people, right? Constant awareness, constant training. You did it last year, you did it 6 months ago, does not mean you cannot do it again. I feel like to change someone that is 18 plus is not easy. So it's not easy to actually change, the workplace. So regular training for all employees to raise awareness, and educate on inclusive practices and some of the things they are doing that they may not know, it may not be deliberate, and that are actually not good or not inclusive, right? Companies, I'm just giving examples, companies like IBM have implemented comprehensive training programs to educate their workforce, on disability. Another one is inclusive recruitment practices, right? I've worked as a recruiter full-time before even moving to like generalist HR, and actually like leading the HR team. And I know recruitment is like that. Again, I feel like I think it even starts from the top. Inclusive job descriptions. Don't like write a job description that's like, we don't want you here, but we say we are inclusive, but the way you're writing is like, no, we don't want you here, right? It's just how you write things. So sometimes for me, I'm just like, you've written your own, I'm going to modify it, right? To ensure that it's actually very inclusive and you're not, see some people, they put out their biases in job description. I'm like, the audacity. Do you think that, I mean, why? It's just very clear. And it's also the same here, even in my country as well. So ensure that the job descriptions are inclusive. You're actually stating the company's commitment to inclusion, even in your job posting, right? And then targeted recruitment, partnering with organizations. I mean, before this meeting, I actually had to call. I know someone in Nigeria and is doing like a lot of work in terms of inclusion and disability. And I had to call him to just pick his brain, like, how are you doing it? And what are some of the pointers you think I can actually talk about? So partnering this with people who are doing work in that way shows your commitment and actually supporting and actually, actually ensuring that your recruitment is actually fair and inclusive. And yeah, I think those are ways you can actually, I'm looking at time, that's I'm talking a bit fast. So yeah, so those are some of the ways you can, overcome it or promote inclusion in the workplace. Like I mentioned, accessible work environment. I won't talk much about that. It's quite clear. It's like straight to the point. Your tools, even if you work remotely, you may think, oh, I don't, you have to come to the office, right? So it's not like I had to do something special for you. But even while working remotely, how are you ensuring that the technology you're providing is also inclusive, right? Support groups, right? So companies can also provide a support network for employees with disabilities and, promote inclusion as well. Mentoring program helps. Sometimes promotion and growth in organizations, you need like sponsors, you need like mentors, you need coaches. It's not easy to kind of like say, oh, I have it all figured out. And like as an organization, as an HR leader, what are you doing to actually support? How are you intentionally connecting or being that bridge, right? To mentors, people who maybe cannot relate, well, who will be your advocates, who understand, and who can, speak and pave the way for you. And so that intentionality also has to be there. And so, having like a support group as well can also help, so that there's peer support, there are advocates, and a whole lot you can actually do to promote inclusion in your workplace. So the role of HR, right? I think HR people have a lot to play. I'm also talking about myself. I'm talking to a lot of people, whether or not you think you are influential or you have that influence. If you work in HR, there are things you can actually do to, it's gradual. It's not something like you just wake up and be like, oh yeah, I can do this in like 1 month. It's like it can never finish. You just have to constantly promote inclusivity in your workplace. So continuous feedback and improvement, celebrating diversity, policies. Sometimes the policies we create or we make or we push are not, it's like going against what we preach, right? You're saying, oh yeah, we're open to it, but like this policy seems harmless or honest, but it's directed, it's not going to help some certain groups of people. So actually, and if you don't have like groups you can run it through, you'd be like, look at this for me, we're about to implement this, and does it have any form of bias? So like ensuring that your policies are very inclusive and not, people don't feel like, oh yeah, I feel like this thing is just going to make life difficult for me working in this space. And compensation. I mean, I won't even focus on this because sometimes you just, sometimes the way we look at inclusion, right? It's like I'm doing you a favor. And so you just in a way compensate people differently. You know the way they say, oh, men sometimes earn more than women. HR professionals, whether or not it's written in your policy, sometimes you compensate differently. And so it's like, no, if you want to promote inclusion in your workplace, ensure that you're paying people for that value, not for what they've told you or what you feel like I'm doing someone a favor, or I'm just, because I want to fill a diversity quota, I just need to, I'm just bringing you on board. I'm paying you half or one third. This person already has the value, has the experience, has the skills required, compensate fairly, and their growth in the organization should not be different. Should not be, one special program and then they're feeling like, oh yeah, we're like the charity. No, no. And whether or not we say it exists. And I'm just like breaking table, it exists, right? The way and manner and the way we design our compensation and benefits, it's not straightforward. It looks straightforward, but deep down, it's not straightforward. And so sometimes even identifying those biases and just like saying, just removing that, you're not doing anyone a favor by doing this. You're just actually being fair. You don't have to be like, you just have to be fair. So just be fair in terms of how you are even evaluating somebody's skills. Right. So I'm just thinking about countries. And when I did my research, I know a lot of African countries still have a long way to go because we naturally have that bias, right? And so it's a lot of process to change it and actually to just think openly and be like, this is how it should work. I mean, I attended a program, an employability program, like last month, and someone was saying, I mean, I've gone through school, I've passed, I'm really good, but because I'm blind, like nobody wants to employ me. And I'm like, it's the reality. I don't think this person is lying. It's the reality. It's the reality of work. We tell you work hard, do all these things, do all the things you need to be competitive. And at the end, they're left behind and we're just keeping quiet about it and just be like, yeah, nothing is wrong. If it's not broken, don't fix it, right? I mean, so we can actually learn from some of these countries. And I really hope that my country will do something about this in the future. I mean, yeah, so just moving forward, right? Just, because of time as well. Diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice we make every day. It is a choice. Whether or not we have acknowledged it, it is a choice. And as leaders, we have to put out a message that we embrace it and not just tolerate it. And not just be like, yeah, like that doing someone a favor means to get it off our mindset and actually like embrace it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I hope I didn't exceed time for just
Thank you so
opening up
much.
for further
Thank you so much.
conversations.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And you, every speaker is inspired more and more. And we left on, if you have some question to Yolanda, please ask, because a few minutes left. But the next, our last speaker, Angelique Hamilton, she is waiting for us also. No, so we will go to the next speaker, yeah? Oh, everybody agree. Angelique, I want to introduce a little yourself. After you can add something, okay? Angelique from USA, she is a CEO, founder, cultural leader, people coach, top diversity, equity, inclusion expert, an exceptional and award-winning human resources and diversity and inclusion leader, listed among the world top 100 HR influencer in 2021. Please add something if I'm wrong. I'm just a little bit out.
Yeah, so absolutely 100% correct. So I actually am probably ending the discussion to focus on what most people are talking about now, is AI. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. It'll only take me a second. So let me get that. And you should be seeing my actual presentation. So let me go ahead and share it from the beginning. All right, so what I really wanted to share with each of you is a topic that's true to mine right now as we're talking about it is AI. And today I wanted to talk about how we can navigate inclusion in the age of AI. AI is really foremost and formidable in all of our business settings and everything that we do. So there is a component of AI that actually impacts the workforce when we talk about diversity, and that is addressing it through ageism and all of the other isms in a technology realm. So just a little bit. So again, a little bit about me. I am a HR, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and culture leader. I have over 20 years of experience in human resources and people operations, specifically in the industries of startup organizations, nonprofit, healthcare, and social enterprise organizations. I'm really dear to heart in terms of advocacy to ADD, ADHD, as well as diversity and any women-led or women-centered different causes. And most importantly, my goal is really trying to create great cultures. But while we're here today, this is just a little bit about me, is really about ageism. Ageism is going to affect us, and some of the statistics I just wanted to cite with you, United States wise, is that the age of 60 in the workforce has risen to about over 40% since actually 2022. So we have more individuals that are approaching that age, but they're also in the workforce. And so when we talk about ageism is really discrimination or just a form of prejudice against an individual, really and solely based on their age. Now, when we talk to that, the importance of it, as our workforce ages, there is potential biases that we may have, not only in our processes, our hiring, our promotions, the way we even treat our employees, but that impact will be more, and I would say impactful, as it relates to AI and the introduction in AI. So there is potential biases in the algorithm that's being created. You have to know that most technology experts are not within that age group of 40 and above. So you will note that most of that algorithm that's being created in all new technology will have some adverse impact to the older group. So what we need to consider as we're looking at developing those technologies within our companies, within our organizations, or even within your business is to recognize that there may be an undiscovered form of ageism, and also trying to value the experience that we have in our workforce in the light of technology and really trying to foster digital literacy for all ages, regardless of who you are. One of the things I wanted to point out, there will be about 2.4 million jobs that will be lost by 2030 as a result of AI in the United States. And globally, we're expecting about 400 plus million jobs. That is a huge group of individuals, and probably a larger percentage of that are individuals who are considered well placed. They've been in their roles for a number of years and more tenured and more senior in terms of work. So when we talk to ageism, that group of individuals will have probably the most impact as it relates to either their job security and also job placement. So trying to really develop some digital literacy initiatives that really caters to all of the groups within your workforce really does embed true inclusivity. So that's one point. And so other forms of discrimination as we look at the digital era is all of the isms. So racism, sexism, and most of my peers today talked really about ableism. This gets amplified by artificial intelligence. So we have to look at what are those effects in the digital workplace? What are some ethical concerns? How do we really develop our AI and those implications of our workforce? How do we do it as leaders and as human resources and operation professionals is really to first address the biases that we have. Again, focus on promoting inclusion. Look at the form of discrimination that may exist as we continue to implement technology. Some companies are removing those workflows where you're actually really focused on the age or what we consider the experience level of the individual. And what they're actually covering is that when they're doing the actual recruitment and the placement of candidates, it is what we consider really faceless in terms of candidate. So the only thing that you will see is that person's experience as it relates to their skills and their talents versus the numbers of years, where they're located, their actual name, because there are some biases in people as they identify someone's name and their nomenclature, and as well as their age. So it's so important that we try to create very ethical framework in the way that we actually manage artificial intelligence. So to promote it, we need to really look at creating very, I would say very generic and very easy AI training programs. This is new for all of us. It seems like only a year ago that the boom happened with AI in terms of more organizations adopting it into their workplace. But as we get to integrate it within the workplace, we also have to look at the education that we're actually educating our team members and our employees on how to really use it so that they can be the users of the tool and the tool is not outplacing them. So creating those ethical guidelines, developing teams within your workforce to support that communication, creating open dialogue. I think what's happening now is most employers are afraid to even embrace AI or talk about it, yet they're having discussions of using this tool to replace roles. So how do we create that open dialogue? How do we build transparency in AI as we relate to decision-making processes and deciding when is a best use case to using it to really improve and enhance the efficiency of your operation? Again, how do we foster AI literacy for all of our employees? Right now, if you probably were to survey the workforce, there's a small percentage of individuals that are either utilizing AI or really have knowledge of it. But as we look at the ageism and all of the isms, how do we ensure that everyone within the workforce is educated and informed on how to use this tool? We also have to build empathy. When we have change, as you know, any type of technology that's introduced, how do we introduce technology so that people have an understanding of what the impact is, but also have an understanding of how we can easily educate those individuals and also promote the empathy in your design. So how are you designing your work and also advocating for your team members so that they're able to really embrace this technology and really tune in to being connected to as you advance your workforce? And then most importantly, we have to ensure that we have equitable access to all AI technologies. So if you do introduce it within your climate and within your culture, ensuring that all employees have access to it and not just a small percentage. So very important for us to really look at these strategies to introducing as well as promoting inclusivity as we try to adopt AI integration. So some tips for us as a group, when you're looking at your employees and your workforce, some of the things you can do is one, stay informed. What you learned from AI a week ago is probably outdated today. So make sure that you're keeping up to date with all of the advancements of AI technology. Every day, it seems like ChatGPT is updated and all of the various tools. So make sure that you're always up to date with the AI technology. As a leader, as a member of your employer, challenge the biases, recognize in your technology and challenge those biases to promote a more inclusive workforce. We have to advocate for more unbiased AI solutions and algorithms within the organization. That's most importantly that we have to do. We also have to foster collaboration. So it's so important that you collaborate with your employees despite their generational differences and also embrace those backgrounds. That's how you'll be able to really improve your innovation, and you can also stem creation and creativity with those groups. Also promote teamwork, as you're related to your work projects. How can you introduce AI to leverage those diverse perspectives as well as those experiences with your teams? And we also have to advocate for lifelong learning. As we know that now AI has changed our workforce, it has changed the world. So how can we create and build training and resources for all of our employees of all ages that really enhance their digital literacy for any new technologies that you will adopt? And also create a culture that values continuous learning and skill development. So it's so important. I do believe we have to promote transparency. This is a tough conversation to have, but you have to advocate for transparency if you're going to make a decision to introduce AI. What impact will that have to your workforce? Will your workforce be a part of the 2.4 million or the 400 million individuals that are impacted in the organization? And if it is, how are you going to have that conversation to reskill and upskill those impacted employees so that they're not affected? Encourage the open communication. When there's use and talk about use of AI technologies in your organization, make sure that you keep that open communication going and be connected to your teams. And we have to champion diversity, support diversity in AI, support it in your teams, also support it in your decision-making processes to really promote those various perspectives that you have for everyone. And then lastly, we just have to really celebrate the unique contributions and experiences of your teams. So this is how we really get inclusion, and we actually block out all of the actual obstacles that it relates to all of the isms. So here are a couple of resources that are available. The AIinclusive.org is an organization that is dedicated to advocating for inclusion within AI. Microsoft also has a toolkit, and this is also the website that you can look up to get information and tips on being inclusive as you're building out your AI technology. I will leave you with one quote, and this actually comes from the one of the founders of OpenAI, which is Sam Altman. It says, "Don't let yourself make excuses for not doing the things you want to do." So one of the things that we want to do is ensure that we have AI that's embedded, that is inclusive, and that embraces one and empowers all.
Thank you so much for your amazing speech. Really, AI today it's a very necessary tool, and everybody use it just to not to waste time. This is like for this first of all. And please, colleagues, if you have some question for Angelique, please ask, because our event is going to finish. And it was amazing, I think so. It was very insightful, and I want to thank for all the speakers. Somebody left us, but anyway, I want to say from my sincere bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for all of you. Your words make this event special, really. It's really true. So I think so that no any question, and thanks so much, Angelique, because you was the last one. You're welcome. Yes. So
wait, can I ask one? I hate to be the one asking all the questions,
yes,
but I'm really curious.
Welcome.
Now, Angelique, you know, you talked about AI and algorithms. I'm wondering, do you think that actually will kind of come no other way to say it, but bite us in the butt in terms of actually excluding people when you combine AI and hiring? And what I'm thinking about that is using databases, because you know, back in the day, you know, when there was cognitive computing with IBM, where they could figure out what were the best criteria for the best employees. And I'm almost wondering if AI actually begins to become exclusive because of trying to find the best criteria, the best employees, and takes all these other things we talked about today, takes that out of the equation of the best hires.
So one of the things I can share with you from a recruiting standpoint, most of the organizations that are actually developing technology centered around talent attraction are centering that selection process based on minimum requirements. So those individuals who would meet those requirements for that role would, optimally be considered for that role or position. Primarily before the adoption of AI, it would actually screen out individuals regardless. You know, it would actually, as you stated, like IBM really focused on that cognitive in terms of optimizing recruitment through that lens. But now you see less of that. And I do like the fact that most recruitment now is what we can consider invisible hiring. So we don't see your name. We don't see, it's not gendered towards that individual, because there are some hidden biases from, selection firms and recruiters and hiring managers. Yeah. So as more AI evolves through this process, hopefully you will start to see more inclusive organizations and inclusive operations.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that answer.
That's all.
Yes, it was great. So, dear speakers and all participants, I think so that we will end the event, and I want to thank you once again for joining, for being part of this our great journey. And I will hope we will see in our next events all of you. Thank you so much from my heart, really. Thank you so much. Take care. See you. Bye. Hello to everyone. We just wait a little. Our participants are joining us still, and we will start, okay?